Hi, I'm Laura Maiola from MoxieLife Coach, and as a divorce coach and mediator, I help you save big money in divorce while also providing you with the emotional, legal, and financial support you need to make better decisions in this process. In this week's episode of What You Don't Know About Divorce Will Cost You, I am going to be talking about our inner critics, our negative self-talk. This is core to my coaching practice for a lot of reasons. Firstly, my business is called MoxieLife Coach. Here in New England, Moxie means an attitude of fearlessness in everyday circumstances. That's how I choose to live my life, and that's what I hope I give to others and theirs. And that takes on added importance in a divorce when you're surrounded by fear and the idea that risk is all around you. Those are false self-limiting beliefs, and a large part of what I do in the very beginning of a coaching relationship is we explore your specific inner critics, your negative self-talk. In the coaching world, we call them gremlins or saboteurs. There was actually a woman I had a consult with who thought I was saying savage whores. So throughout the entire coaching relationship, I would call her saboteurs your savage whores, and it was pretty funny and pretty apt for what she was going through. So what's important about our saboteurs is they grab our feelings, they hijack our feelings, and they tell us a story about what they want us to think about it. They define what those things mean for us. They give us fear, doubt, confusion, anger. They tell us what those things mean. And we react to them. We react to that story as if it's true, when in fact it's keeping us stuck. When we react to these things, we've given them our power. These saboteurs are called saboteurs because they sabotage us in our lives. We become our own worst enemies when we react and don't choose for ourselves. So Shirzad Sharman, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, had been the chairperson of the Coaches Training Institute, where I was trained and certified. And he wrote a very powerful book called Positive Intelligence, which actually goes into the psychology of saboteurs. Regardless of all that, he actually named universal saboteurs, and I use this in my coaching because it's very useful for giving a framework for how these saboteurs work in our psychology. So in his thesis, the master saboteur is the judge. Now, everyone has the judge. The judge judges others, judges ourselves. The judge gives us really high standards that are outside of our control. And then when we can't actually achieve them, tells us, see, you weren't good enough, you weren't capable, you don't deserve it. The judge actually works with a team of sub-saboteurs. And you might recognize some of these in yourself. The pleaser, the victim, the restless, the controller, the hyperachiever, the avoider. And sometimes, most of the time, these saboteurs work together. So I'll give you an example. So when you feel that there could be a conflict, you feel fear. Oh no, I might say something to this person. I don't like this person. I might say something that creates conflict. So I'm either going to avoid that person to avoid conflict, or I'm going to bring the pleaser in and guess at what I think that person would like to hear so as to avoid conflict. So in both cases, you're reacting to a story that there will be conflict and that conflict is negative. Who knows that it is? You're changing what you would choose for yourself. You're compromising yourself because you're believing a story that isn't true. And it's placing you in a position where you now have no options. You're now in a position of, I need to please these people. You know, pleasing is about guessing. You don't really know what's going to please somebody else. You don't have the evidence to know that, and yet you're giving it a lot of your time and energy. You're avoiding a lot of your time and energy. The controller says, you need to control every situation. Well, how can you do that? You really only have control over yourself. So now you're setting yourself up to have to control everything around you, which is actually impossible. And it sets you up with the judge to say that you failed. The victim works with the controller or the perfectionist to say, well, to not be a victim, I need to control everything. Or because I can't control everything, now I'm the victim. All of these saboteurs have you focused on circumstances that are outside yourself. They're basically telling you that everything around you has power and control, and that you don't. They put you in a box that limits your possibility and your options, your imagination, and your perspective. But that's not who you are. So I start there in my coaching relationships because I want to understand who your saboteurs are. You know, what do they look like? What do they feel like? What do they sound like? Because once you can identify their voices, you can recognize their voices, you can recognize how they feel, you can understand patterns that trigger them. At that point, you can not react. You can choose something else. You can choose what serves you in that moment. And that's calling on your inner wisdom. But you're not going to recognize that until you recognize that you have been reacting to these stories that aren't really true. You have no evidence to say that they're true. So think about in your life where you're reacting to these stories. Are they true? No. What they're doing is, yes, keeping you in a box, telling you that any kind of change is risky. There is no risk. You know, I like to think that a good example is if I'm going to cross the road, my saboteurs would say, don't do it, you're going to get hit by a bus. But my inner wisdom would say, you'll be fine as long as you look both ways. So I'm going to choose to do what I want and choose to listen to my inner wisdom that trusts my ability. I own the power. I have the capability. I don't want to react and give my power to everything around me that keeps me in this box. So think about what those stories are for you. Some of them are probably very deep-seated, so you need to bring them into the light. Use your critical thinking skills. Right? Question what's really there and how true it is. And make a choice. That's where your power is. I actually developed my quiz on what's sabotaging you in your divorce based on those universal saboteurs, though in a different way. I was very much informed by that. So take the quiz, see what your most dominant saboteur is and how it's affecting your life potentially. And in the meantime, use the free resources on my website, become a Moxie member, schedule a consultation with me, whatever you need. I try to work with people in whatever level of interaction they need. And until then, speak your truth, even when your voice shakes.